He who does not understand human nature is doomed to be devoured by it. Machiavelli.
There are truths no one wants to hear because they unsettle, because they rip illusions apart. One of them is this: kindness without strategy is not virtue, it is weakness. I learned it the hard way. Shine too brightly, and you become a target. Give without measure, and you turn into a habit. And what becomes a habit, sooner or later, will be despised. To be transparent in a world of impostors is a slow suicide. I understood it as if I were walking through the damp corridors of Florence, where the air reeks of iron and ash, and torches barely illuminate hidden faces. In those halls of power, virtues become masks, and naive kindness is not a virtue, but a weapon in the hands of others. And then he appeared like a whisper crossing the centuries. I remember what Machiavelli taught me, and I still feel him speaking to me from the shadows.
I have seen princes fall not by the sword of their enemies, but by the naivety of their own hearts. Men are rarely grateful. They obey interest, not virtue. A ruler who relies solely on the love of the people condemns himself to failure, because that love is volatile. It dissolves at the first adversity. Whoever seeks to remain in power must understand something brutal. Unlimited kindness does not create loyalty. It creates abuse. The naive prince does not rule. He is ruled. The prince who fears being harsh becomes food for the cunning. That is why I wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both."
And I understood it clearly. His words were not theory. They were an autopsy of human nature. The naive always pay with blood, while the cunning impose respect. Cesare Borgia proved it in Rome. His enemies obeyed him not because they loved him, but because they feared the price of defiance. He did not fall for being weak, but for fortune itself, the death of his father Alexander VI. Machiavelli observed him and knew that given more time, he would have been invincible. I too confirmed it in my own life. It was never about being weak, but about lacking strategy. It was never about giving too much, but about not knowing where to stop. Respect is not born from what you give, but from what you withhold. I learned that most people don't get angry at what you do, but at what you stop giving. The more you yield, the less you're worth. The more you say yes, the more invisible you become. And every time you sacrifice your voice to avoid discomfort, you give away a piece of yourself that never returns. It is a mistake to think that kindness alone will bring respect. Kindness without limits does not inspire gratitude. It inspires exploitation. And whoever doubts it should try saying no just once to someone who is used to getting everything. The result is always the same: indignation, rage, rejection. Because they were never accustomed to your generosity, they were accustomed to your endless availability. That is when I discovered that true power lies in scarcity. What is abundant is consumed. What is rare is valued.
Men forget the death of their father more quickly than the loss of an inheritance. Such is the fragility of human love. They do not respect what is given too easily. They respect what they cannot control. That is why I advised rulers to manage their presence, to ration their favors, to turn silence into a weapon. For fear, when handled well, secures what love can never guarantee.
That day I understood that disappearance was strategy, not punishment. That silence was power, not weakness, because silence, when born of awareness, becomes scarcity, and scarcity is the root of respect. I discovered that true respect is not asked for, it is projected. It is not begged, it is imposed. And that the mistake of the naive is to think they must be loved in order to be respected. The truth is different. Love without respect is not love. It is possession disguised. We live in an age where everyone screams to be seen, where attention is begged like alms. But what is valuable is never the loud, it is the scarce. True power is not filling the air with words. It is sustaining silence until the entire room bends to your presence. The weak want to be understood. The relentless want to be impossible to ignore. And that is the difference. Strength is not in explaining your value. It is in living it so firmly that no one can deny it. The one who is always there disappears. The one who knows when to leave becomes unforgettable. Psychology confirms it. Whoever manages their presence creates respect, because absence weighs more than 1,000 speeches. Respect is built in calm, in clear limits, in the ability to walk away without explanation. That is power, projecting such firmness that others must think twice before trying to use you.
He who masters his passions masters others. He who does not fear loss cannot be broken, and he who does not need to be loved cannot be conditioned. That is the essence of power that endures when all else crumbles.
That is why Machiavelli never wrote for the cruel. He wrote for the naive who believed kindness was enough. He taught us that power is not about reason, but about strategy. That on the chessboard of power, the one who shows himself without armor ends up devoured, and that only those who understand human nature can survive intact.
Power is never free. The ruler who wishes to be loved is weakened at the first rejection. The one who accepts being feared sustains his strength even when everyone hates him. For respect, even when disguised as fear, remains the strongest armor against betrayal. But not even absolute cunning can escape fortune. I saw it in Cesare Borgia. He had imposed fear, consolidated his dominion, and yet fell in an instant. Not by errors of strategy, but by the death of his father. His downfall was proof that even the most relentless prince can be struck down if fortune turns her back.
And then I understood the brutal truth. All power comes with a price. The price of being respected is loneliness. The price of setting limits is bearing incomprehension. The price of no longer begging for love is being called cold, distant, cruel. That is the cost of freedom. Cesare Borgia fell by fortune. I fell by naivety. Different prices, but the same lesson. He who does not pay with strategy pays with blood. And I would rather walk hooded, alone and in silence, than kneel in the midst of false love. Now I know. Respect is not asked for, it is provoked. It is not begged, it is projected. And when you no longer need to be loved, you begin to grow immense, impossible to minimize, unforgettable. Because the world does not reward those who wait, but those who dare. And in this life, as Machiavelli reminded me from the shadows, it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. That is the legacy I carry in silence, hooded, with the purple on my chest. I am not here to be loved. I am here to be impossible to ignore.